What's going on, everyone? Gonna give everyone a few minutes to jump on. Let's see who the first person is to comment. Got my drink here on the side so that I can keep my throat nice and moist throughout the process here. I just got off doing a Zoom session, a birthday paint party Zoom session for a little 11-year-old girl in Texas, I believe. She's in Texas. So I just got finished with that a little while ago. We did that for about an hour and a half. She had her group of friends on painting, and we did this little guy right here. We did this little guy for that little Zoom session. It took us about an hour and 20 minutes to do. Took our time with it. Everybody had a really good time. So we did something like this one. We did a larger version of that last year during, I don't know, it might have been like June, late April. I can't remember, but anyhow, so I was doing that, and I was, talking a lot. So throat always starts to suffer a little bit when that happens. So, but all right, we got a good little crowd. So what are we doing today? Kind of an impromptu pre-prep session for the Wednesday painting, the Sunflower Nectar. We got the piece right there. Did I replace? I did. Okay, I had it up on the wall behind me, and I just wanted to make sure that I remembered to replace it with something else so I didn't have a bare part of the wall behind me. So we're doing this coming Wednesday, the virtual painting part of it. I wasn't planning on doing a pre-prep. We were going to do everything in one sitting, but I know that so many of you benefit from doing the drawing part first. Gives you a little time to prepare, to plan, to maybe even practice before we do the live session. So the live session on Wednesday is going to incorporate just the painting part of it. This is being recorded. It's going to be saved to both Facebook and YouTube. So if you don't make it to the live today, I didn't give you much notice, but if you don't make it to the live, it's okay, because you're going to be able to watch this recorded session anytime you'd like between now and Wednesday, and even afterward, right? So some of you aren't going to be able to join in on the live on Wednesday. You'll be joining the recorded session on that as well. So anyhow, that's why we're doing this today. Just want to say hi to a few people that are on here with me right now. We got Sue Kripe. How's it going? Tabitha. How are you, Tabitha? Sonia Rangel. How are you, Sonia? Louisa from Prince Edward Island. How's it going, Louisa? Louisa Gill. Not Louisa. Louisa. Looks like. Sorry if I mispronounced any of your names. It's going to happen sometimes. Rosa. Paula. How's it going, everybody? All right, very cool. So again, very impromptu session. We weren't planning on holding this today. So we're going to be doing the pre-prep. Instead of me recording the pre-prep and then editing it and putting it up on Facebook and YouTube, I just figured let's do a live session, see who wants to come on and join in. But anyway, we're going to get started pretty quickly. I'm going to be drawing this with a piece of chalk. Okay, and I'll change the screen here in a little bit where what I'm doing is larger, and the screen with me on it gets nice and small, so I'm not in the way, and you guys get to see everything in a much better view. But I'm going to be drawing with chalk today. You don't have to use chalk. Chalk is really cool, really nice to use because it makes it easy to make corrections. Okay, I do recommend doing this with chalk. If you have a piece of chalk, we're going to draw right on the bare canvas. Also, really quickly before we start, I would recommend, if you are hesitant about your drawing skills and you're just building them up, don't practice on the canvas or on the surface that you're going to be painting on Wednesday. Practice on a scratch sheet of paper, on a multimedia pad, whatever it is, practice first. I guarantee after a few practice sessions, when you finally do the one that you're going to paint on, your actual painting is going to be on, it's going to be so much easier. Okay, your brain starts to adapt to it. So that would be my recommendation. If you're, kind of hesitant about your drawing skills, practice before you actually do it on the canvas or surface that you're going to be doing the actual painting on. So I'm going to be doing it with chalk. If you don't have chalk, use pencil. You're just going to want to be using really light pencil lines, very important. Light pencil lines, they're easy to erase. And even if you have smudges, you're going to be painting over everything. The lighter the pencil marks, the easier it is to paint over. Same thing with chalk. Chalk is just a little bit easier to paint over in most cases. But you still want to be careful with chalk. Doesn't mean you just start putting chalk all over the place. You know, you do want to be careful with chalk, but chalk is nice and easy because it does allow you to erase. All right, but okay, there we go. We'll do this before Wednesdays. Anxious to get her done, says Joanne. Okay, fantastic. All right, Louisa, fantastic. Glad I got it right. Sounds great. And then Kathleen Potter from New Hampshire. Okay, if we're ready to go, let me go ahead and adjust my screen here so that you guys have a large view of my canvas. So let's get right into it. Well, let me give you guys a couple of minutes. How about that? A couple of minutes to get your supplies. All you really need is a piece of chalk or a piece of pencil or a pencil with an eraser on it. Okay, so get your stuff ready. Get your surface ready. Again, whatever it is, whether you're actually doing it on what you're going to be painting on Wednesday or after, or if you're just going to use this as a practice session, get that stuff ready, and then we're going to move on. I wanted to show what we got coming up. Let's see. Do we have anything on the wall that's coming up here soon? I do not. Everything that I have, either I took home, all the next sessions that are coming up, I took the paintings home to create stencils and things like that with them. But anyway, you guys already know. If you're interested in finding out what is next on the calendar, just simply go to the event tab on the main Painting with Jesse page, and you will see all the events that are coming up. We've got about 4 or 5 events that are currently added to the calendar. I'm also going to be adding some more here pretty soon. Hopefully by the end of today. I'm planning on by the end of today having at least 2 more events added to the calendar. If you guys are interested, I know lots of times people complain to me or they'll send me a message, hey Jesse, I didn't know you were painting today. How come I'm not getting the notifications from Facebook about your events? If you're interested in getting added to the mailing list, please send me an email to paintingwithjesse@gmail.com, paintingwithjesse@gmail.com. I'll be sending updates on a regular basis. Anytime I update the calendar, I'll send out a quick email to everyone that's on that. That way you have hopefully the notifications from Facebook and then email to back that up so you know what's coming up. Okay? Oh, Debbie Sanderson says hi from the UK. Nearly 11 p.m. as usual. I will watch tomorrow. Awesome, Debbie. Thank you for stopping by and saying hello. Okay, here we go. So let's look at our canvas and my rickety stool here. I'm going to turn the original towards me a little bit. It gives me a better angle to view it from. That way I get the proportions right and things like that. So I don't know what size canvas you're all planning on using or surface, whatever it is that you're using. I'm going to be working on this 16 by 20 inch canvas. I'm going to pretend that I'm approaching this the very first time I've ever drawn it or anything like that. How would I approach a reference photo and transfer it over to a new surface? Okay, so I like to make some observations. First, where the primary or the major focal points of the piece. Of course, we got the really big sunflower here on the left. We got the smaller little sunflower on the right, and then we got the 2 little bees floating around at the top. Okay. First thing you want to notice, first thing you want to do is kind of mentally block out where those shapes are going to be on your canvas, so that you start with the. You know what? Let me turn this camera a little tiny bit towards me. It feels like I'm a little bit over, maybe too much. Hold on, everybody. Sorry about that. I just realized that it was at a slight angle in that direction. You don't want that. Hold on. No, I tweaked it more than I wanted to. There we go. Okay, so what you want to do is you want to block out mentally how much space you need so that you can fit everything onto your canvas. In my case, it's easy because the 2 canvases are the same size. They're sitting right next to each other, so I can easily gauge what sizes, how much space I need to leave on the new canvas. But let's say this was a smaller image, or I'm looking at this from an image on a screen, or I've got a picture next to me, right? So what you want to do is just really quickly, where is your circle? Okay, where's the circle, the center part for the big sunflower? Well, the middle of this canvas is about right in here. And we're eyeballing it. We don't have to take a measuring tape or ruler and measure it exactly, but this is about where the halfway point on that canvas. So on my new canvas, whether it's a different size, larger, smaller, I would simply come over. Hopefully you're painting like this where it's vertically longer than it is widthwise, but if not, that's okay. You can still make adjustments. But about the halfway point on this canvas is about right in here. About. So I know that on my canvas here, this is about where the, let me scoot this forward a little bit and get it bigger into the screen there. Okay, so we know that this is about where the bottom edge of this big circle is going to be. Okay, so somewhere in here is where that center for that sunflower is. Now I'm just going to go ahead and do a rough, really light circle. Again, I'm working with chalk. This is really easy to rectify. I'll look at it, and if it looks about right, I'm going to darken it. And this is the same process you want to use with pencil. You don't want to go too dark, whichever one you're using, but you go dark enough where you can see it easily, but also light enough where you will be able to erase no problem if you need to. So there's my circle. Another thing that we can look at before you draw your circle, and another thing you can do, well, how many of these circles how many of these big centers, circle for the center of the sunflower, fit on the canvas in either direction? So you kind of get a sense of the proportion or the ratio of the size of this compared to the overall canvas. I can go across like this. Now I eyeball this. I go 1. This is 1. It's right on the edge, so I can start right there. 1, 2, 3, 4. So about 4 of these fit across on my canvas. So what does that tell me? That this here takes up about a fourth of the canvas horizontally. Okay, again, depending on your canvas size, that may or may not make a big difference at all, or may not mean much to you, but that's how I would quickly gauge. And I can do this from a picture also, right? If I'm looking at a computer screen, I can do the same thing. I just really quickly take my fingers and go, well, what are the proportions of that thing that I'm about to draw in comparison to the rest of the image? And I can do it the same way vertically. I can just go like this, start at the top. So I bring my circle up to the top and I go 1, 2, 3, 4. Look at that. About 5. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So this circle takes up about a fifth of the space vertically. So a quarter of the space across and a fifth of the space vertically. If that, again, just to do a quick proportions gauge. All right, so anyway, you could do that before you actually make your circle. Gives you a better gauge. There's my middle, there's the middle of my circle. What's the next thing that we would need to know is how wide approximately or how large are we going to make this sunflower? What I like to do is I'll take a circle. I represent the outer area, not the furthest or outermost area of my sunflower, but close with a circle around the center. So I'll do something like this. And I'll give you a close-up in a second. Again, I'm trying to maintain light marks on the canvas without going too light so you guys struggle with it. But I also don't want to have a hard time erasing. So let me show you something really quickly for those of you that are new to working with chalk. And this is really just basic chalk that I picked up from a kid's, like a kid's little chalk set. But if I need to correct anything, let's say I need to erase anything, I have a paper towel. I have some water here. I just dip my paper towel in the water. I don't want this heavy. I just nice and damp, and I can do this. Right? That pencil line or that chalk line is almost completely gone. Depending on the pigment that you're using or depending on how dark you made it, it's a relatively easy thing to erase. So, but that's just to show you. Now, what this line represents, it does not represent the outermost points of the sunflower. It represents somewhere down in here. I'm gauging, I'm eyeballing. This circle helps me to gauge about where the tips, the ends of those sunflowers need to be. I know they're going to come out a little bit further, but this gives me a bit of a gauge. Now, this is a little longer than I have down here. I'm looking at it and I can right away tell that. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to make a little adjustment. Bring my line a little further down. And then I can do the same thing to the side, right? Well, that's a little longer. So if I do this and I come over like this, it's a little longer here than here, but they're close enough where I'm okay with that. Okay? So nice long circle around the edge. And I have an idea, I have the roundness where now I can confidently go through and start adding petals. So let's focus on the larger, more prominent ones first. We can start on any one of these, but I'm going to start here at the top. I can start with this one. I can start with this one. Doesn't really matter where you start, but pick a focal point one, and that's one right there. It just catches my eye. So and that the tip of that is up here somewhere. So I can mark that off, and then I just bring it down. It's obviously curved, comes down, connects to the top of my circle or center. I do something like that. And this may end up being wider later because this is a wider petal. When I add paint to it, or as I go through there and draw all my petals, I may adjust that and make it a little bit wider. Or I could simply go like this, make it wider now. Do I want a wider petal, more prominent, more exaggerated? That's how I would do that. Do I want it longer? Does it need to come up a little bit higher? Those are all decisions you can make on the fly. Now, you see so you see all the yellow petals in the front, and there's little orange ones peeking out from behind. Those I'm not going to worry about right now. I'm going to focus on all of my yellow ones first. Those are easy to add in. Again, I'll find another little point on my circle as I go across. I'm just moving this point comes over. There's another one there. If you want, you could go and do all your little dots all at once. Experiment a little bit, right? But here we go. Here's my next one. They can overlap. Okay. Next one. Right in here. How wide you make your petals is up to you. How long, how narrow. They're obviously all going to be slightly different in shape. Okay. What's up, Frankie? How's it going, buddy? Thank you for stopping by, my friend. Got my buddy Frankie who jumped on to say hi. Very cool. Okay. Next one. Let's move over here. And they don't have to have the same exact spacing in between, right? They're going to have slightly different spacing. So I move this one a little further out. And then, okay. If something doesn't make sense, you can erase it. Nice and easy. Now, I didn't forget about this one over here. I'm going to come in and fill it in. So this one just probably barely peeks in about right there. And I don't see all of it. Okay, just comes down. The edge disappears over here, but it disappears off the edge of the canvas, but then it comes back in right there. Okay. So this is how we're going to go all the way through, all the way around until we get over here, one at a time. This petal, this next one's right here. Overlap. Okay, comes down, comes over, and we can start moving a little bit more quickly once you gain a little bit of confidence. But if you're doing this with pencil, it's going to be a little bit trickier, right? Because erasing's a little bit harder with the pencil. But it's okay. You're still going to be all right. Okay? And if when I'm done with the drawing part of it, I look at it and I go, you know what? I don't like how long I want my petals to be longer. Then I just make the adjustment where I just add a little more length to them. Okay? Really easy to make corrections. A lot of times people are afraid to make corrections when they're drawing. Right? They're like, if all of their lines aren't perfect the very first time that they put them down, they get really frustrated and annoyed at the process. But that's just how drawing works. It's about making corrections. Don't get caught up on trying to make it perfect that first time. You will get better at doing this the more you practice, but make little corrections. Make corrections as you go. Next one, right here. Okay. And then lastly, I got one right here, somewhere over here. Comes back, connects this edge again, just like on top, goes off, and then comes back in over here somewhere. Okay. Now I'll take a little step back. When I'm all done making my circle, my petals all the way around, I'll take a little step back and say, is that too big? Is that too small? I think it's a little smaller than this. I also right away look at my little center, my circle here. It's a little bit higher than this one, but it still works. Everything's fine. There's nothing wrong with the way I did this. I could take this point and make it a little bit longer. If I want longer petals, I can just I'm just adding a little bit more length because I want them a little bit longer. Now, careful though, right? Because we don't want to go too far over this way. We're going to minimize how much space we've got for the little one. So, but I've got lots of space to work with here. So I'm just coming. Again, all I'm doing is adjusting the length of these. If they would have been as long as they are now, I wouldn't be adding these extra little lines. I'm just demonstrating how you would go through and make adjustments. Especially if you're using chalk, it's a really easy thing to do. Now, once I've made my petals and I like the length of them, I can just come in here and I'm going to erase all these little extra lines that I made. Water on my paper towel. Don't need a whole bunch of water on here. Whoops! Don't want to start getting drips down your canvas because the paper towel is super saturated. I'm going to erase all of these lines here on the inside first, right where the original edges of my petals were. Just going to go through and quickly erase so I don't have to. I'm not worried about those little smudge areas. No big deal. Those are going to get covered up with paint. Okay. Drawing is about making little adjustments, little tweaks as you go. Nothing wrong with that. Okay. And then slowly, like I said, as you get better, you're going to be making less and less adjustments. Okay, but that's not really even the goal. The goal is to get a nice representation of whatever it is that you're trying to draw. Sometimes it takes longer, sometimes it takes more steps, right? Now this line, the line that I did, the original circumference line, I'm just going to go through and right in between those petals, I'm just going to remove those. Now I mentioned earlier you can paint right over chalk, but you know why mess with it? That chalk, if there's too much of it, it can blend in with your paint when you go right over it. And if you're painting with a color that contrasts quite a bit, you'll see that. You can see that chalk blend into the paint. The paint will pick up the little chalk bits, and you'll have those mixing with that paint. So just clean it up a little bit. Again, doesn't have to be perfect. Just okay. You can leave it kind of smudgy, and if you want, you can go back in there and define your edges a little bit more. Again, don't go too dark. Don't go too dark. Just make sure you're able to see them so that when you paint over them, you have nice, clear edges to work with. Okay, and that's pretty much what you would want to focus on. Now, these little orange pieces on the inside, little orange, not pieces, but petals behind your flower. A couple of observations. They don't stick out as far. They don't come out as far as the original petals or the petals in the forefront. You could make them that long if you'd like. You can make them as long as these, or you can keep them a little bit shorter. So in between each petal, in between each pair of petals that we've got on here now, we're going to add one of those. Just let me clean these up really quickly. All right, here we go. So starting over here, and I mentioned again, they don't come out quite as far as the ones in the front. They don't on my original one anyway, but you could make them come out as far as you'd like. So these just come out part way. They're just little triangle peaks all the way through. And whoops, I'm going to make some of these a little bit narrower. Okay, I made them a little too wide for my taste. So let me clean them up. I want to make them a bit skinnier, a little pointier. Take my towel, just kind of take out some of that excess water in there. So again, I just want to make them a little bit narrower. Don't want them as prominent. The other thing to keep in mind is that everyone's flowers are going to look different. They're going to have different shapes, right? Some are going to be wider, some are going to be thinner. Some of you already have some experience drawing flowers, and so you decide you're going to try yours a different way. All perfectly fine. So there we go. That's a little bit skinnier, more like what I want. All the way around. Okay, all the way around. Perfect. I know there's not a whole lot of difference, but there's enough of a difference that I'm good with that. All right, next step. The little one. So the little one, Once you've got your big one, you can kind of then have an easier time with the smaller one. You don't need to, your proportions and everything are almost set by the big one. How big or how small do you want the little one to be? It's kind of up to you. But my little circle is down here towards the corner somewhere, right? So I can start with my circle. Always a little bit better to start with a smaller circle than a large circle. A small circle is easy to fix. If it's too small, you just make it a little bit wider. A big circle is harder to fix because now you got to clean it, got to wipe it off, right? Erase it, and then make it smaller. So you can start with a small circle and increase the size of it as you go. I'm going to do the same thing that I did earlier. I'm going to give my circle a nice little circumference where the petals about where the, not quite the edge of the petals, but around where that edge is going to be. Okay. Right, something like that. Now, I'm going to use these petals here that are closest to the big sunflower to dictate how big I want them to go all the way around. I don't want to start over here with really small petals, for example, and I come around like, ooh, I got too much space in between. I wanted them to be a little bit closer. So I'm going to use the petals here. I'm going to draw these first. So then that tells me what the rest of the petals, as far as size, are going to look like. So I want these petals to come close. They're going to be about right here, the tip, let's say, of that yellow one. So when I work my way backwards, right? Same thing. There's another one. Oh, first let's do a quick gauge. About. Okay. And they're going to get, some of these are going to get lost towards the edge here. I'm going to make this a little bit bigger. Okay. So my center is a little bit bigger. And here we go. Let's continue. Petal. Petal. All the way around. Nice and easy. Okay, of course, again, those get lost towards the edge. Take a little step back. Look at your painting from a distance or your drawing from a distance, and then check wherever it is that you need to make corrections. For example, here, I want that a little longer. Maybe I want this one a little bit longer also. Those are good sizes there. Are they all generally about the same width? Good, about, right? They're petals. In nature, you're going to get variations. Slight variations, but there are variations. Okay? So now, before I come in and start adding the little petals in between, I can go through and erase these lines, right? And come in. I know I did this together on the same step when I did the top flower, but we could do this first. Remove those. Actually, I think I just I'm thinking back on what I did earlier over here, and I'm going, wait a minute, were those the actual steps that you took? No, I don't remember that those are the exact steps. So anyhow, if what I said didn't make sense, don't worry about it. It's not important. What I meant, basically what I meant to say is that the steps involved in what I did on the outside here when I was erasing aren't super crucial. You can erase now, you can erase later. Doesn't make too much of a difference for this. Okay, so let's just define the petals a little bit. Okay, now I can come in and add my little smaller petals, the shorter ones in between. Again, they don't come out as far as the ones that are in the front. The ones in the front are the prominent ones, right? They're in the foreground. So from a realistic standpoint, they don't come out as far. But you could make them come out as far and your painting will be just fine. Okay, so now I can come in here and erase any extra lines that I don't need easily, no problem, and make corrections as you see fit. Okay, are the Are the petals too small? Are they too big? Are they, you know, overall, is it what I like? When you paint, just because this is what you've got as your drawing part, when you actually paint, you can still make corrections. You can still go through and make your petals wider, for example. On the original, I've got some that overlap a little bit. There's overlapping in between. Okay. There's, you know, there's the little sections in between where I color in the darker areas for the petals behind and the sections closer to the center. A little bit of shading in there. You can use all of that to increase or decrease the size of your petals. But when you're done with your petals, you want to take a little step back. You want to look at your painting, at your drawing, and then decide, how's everything look? Does everything look good? Are my petals pretty proportional? Do I need to make adjustments? Always take a little step back. Look at your handiwork from a distance. It gives you a better perspective, and make little corrections. Okay. Now, another thing that you can do if you're newer at drawing, this is one thing that I always recommend to people, even if you've been drawing or painting for a while. When you're done with your drawing, let's say, for example, that you were going to paint today. You want to go through and you want to paint this. You can step away from your drawing for a few minutes, go take a lunch, go take a little break, something to refresh your brain. You come back, you look at your drawing once again, and you go, oh, sometimes by taking that little break and giving your brain that refreshing, you reset it, you're able to better see things that maybe you had some tunnel vision when you drew it or painted it or started the pre-prep or whatever that you weren't able to see before. You come back, you look at it and you go, oh, that petal's a little too large, or I don't like the proportions. I'm going to fix them. I'm going to change them. And then you go through and make changes before you actually start on the painting part of it. Okay, it's always good to take little breaks in between because it allows that reset. At least for me, for example, when I'm working on a project, I'll work for a couple of hours, an hour, whatever the case may be, and then I'll go take a little break, maybe, whatever it is, anything. Then come back, I reassess, I make corrections if I need them. Sometimes I come back and I go, oh yeah, everything looks good, I like it. And then I continue with the next step. Other times if I've been painting for 5-6 hours and I'm taking little breaks in between, by the time fatigue sets in, my brain starts to get tired and I start having a hard time with things that normally are a little on the easier side. So the same thing, I step away, take a break, go to bed, go to sleep, whatever the case may be, take a nap, and then come back and start it all over again. Okay. But anyway, great question. So Stephanie says, when we start painting, do we do the background colors first? Have trouble getting the brush into tiny spaces. So the blue and the green would be all over the petals. Stephanie, so do me a favor, send me a picture of your smallest brushes. So that is an excellent observation. The way that I would approach this is I would paint the petals and everything first. The first coat of paint would go over the petals. The center isn't as important, but I would paint the petals first for the first layer, right? So all my yellow petals and the orange petals would get a layer of paint. Then I would move into the background. Yes, all of these little points are difficult to get your brushes in between. But it depends on what size canvas you're working on, how big you made your flowers, etc. Something like this is often easier to do on a larger canvas because it gives you more space to work with. But if you don't have an option or you're planning on doing this on a smaller one because that's your preference, you just have to make sure that you've got small brushes to fit in there. For example, give me a second. Let me get over to my little brush set here. Give me 1 second. Give me 1 second. I'm going to cross in front of the camera. But just to show you your options, it also depends on your brush set, right? I understand some people have a more limited supply, etc. But I've got these relatively, actually not even that small, but they're small in comparison to my canvas. I've got, for example, this is about a number 6, number 7 flat brush. Okay, I can use this to very easily get into these little nooks and crannies. Now, you've got to take your time with it when you're coming with your background. So the way that I would approach this painting is this. When I start the painting process, let's say I've painted the first coat of paint on my petals. Then I'll use a 1-inch flat brush or larger even and start painting in my background. But before I do that, I want to take maybe a smaller brush, slightly smaller, and my light blue, for example, everything would get an outline of this light blue. So I'd come in with paint, and I'll talk about this during the live session, but I would outline everything first. I'd come down, so I've got a bit of a darker blue up here, and then it lightens up on the way down. So whatever dark blue I'm using for my sky, I'm going to gauge, comes down to about right here, to about this petal, right? So right there, I would start an outline in blue all the way back up. Okay, I would outline. Once I've got that outline, I would switch brushes, and then I would come in and start painting around. But here's what I do, and I'll touch base on this during the live. That outline that I've got around my petals, when I start to paint the rest of the background, I will come in right over the outline and pull that away. Pull it. I'm going to be using a crisscross kind of random pattern when I paint that background. That's what I did here. Okay, that's the exact same process that I used on my painting over here. I'm using a nice crisscross pattern all the way through the entire canvas. Background gets that crisscross pattern. But when I paint right over the outline that I create around the petals, I paint right over the outline and pull that away. Pull it, and then I can come in over the top of that and start painting with a little crisscross pattern. It's tedious work, a little bit, but once you get the hang of it, it makes your backgrounds, when you draw first, it makes your backgrounds a lot more even, a lot cleaner, and it's a lot more fun. It's a lot more aesthetically pleasing. Now, let's say that you don't want to do your drawing part first. You want to paint your background in first, because painting your background in first will allow you to have a really nice, smooth, clean background if that's what you're going for. And I'm trying to, let me see if I got something back here where I can show you as an example. Okay, so this, let me bring the screen forward here so I can give you guys a better view. So this umbrella piece that we did a few weeks ago has a really clean background. Actually, you know what? Let me take that back. Hold on one second. This does have a really clean background, but it's really easy to get your paintbrush strokes around this, and it was all one even color. Let me show you a different example, because this is not a good one. Sorry. Let me find something here that I can use as a good example of a nice clean background. Let's see. I don't have anything up here that I can use as an example, because everything that I painted around everything. On those, I drew the subjects first and then painted around them. So, but I think you'll understand what I'm talking about. So let's say you want to do your background first. You do your entire background with long, clean brush strokes, whether you're going horizontally or vertically. You just go long, clean brush strokes all the way through your entire background. It gives you a really nice, clean, smooth, even background. Okay, if that's what you're looking for. Some people like to do that first, and sometimes on some of my sessions, we will do that first, and then I come back and draw over that once it's dried. Okay, so if that's what you're looking for, you would do the background first, all blue down to here, right? Down to some spot down here, or you can do everything blue and then worry about the green later. Then you would only have to contend with painting around the flowers now where the green part is. You would do the entire background in blue first. You would draw your flowers over that light blue background, and then later you would add in your green for the grass. Okay? The reason why you wouldn't do your background blue and then do the green part before you draw, two reasons. One, when you draw over the light blue and the green, you might have a hard time. The chalk color or your pencil might be a little hard to see over your green. Okay, that's one. It's not impossible. It can be done. I do it plenty, but it takes a little practice, right? You have to kind of have the right contrast tool for your drawing part of it so you can see it. But the other more important part is this. When you start to paint your flower, if you've got a blue background and then the green background for the grass done, and your drawing comes over all that, and you start to paint your flower over those two different colored backgrounds, your petals are going to look a different color. Where that division let's say that this green line, when you drew your background, was all the way up here. Let's see, this green line was all the way up here, and from there down, it was all green. And from there up was all blue. Your petals, when you're painting the yellow over both of those, you're gonna see that line, because that yellow is transparent, and it's gonna pick up. You're gonna see the green part below it, and you're gonna have the blue part to contend above it that might make your petals a little bit green, because the blue background, right, with yellow over the top. So what's gonna happen is you'd have to make a whole bunch of layers, but it can be done, right? Just a little bit more difficult to do it that way. But there's so many different approaches to painting, and that is one thing that I constantly repeat and talk about during my sessions. There's no one way to approach a painting. Often throughout my sessions, I like to take different approaches. So those of you that are following, and let's say you're coming back and doing the different sessions, you will get experience doing different techniques, different approaches. You will then find your own style, your own preferences as you go. I'm not that instructor that's going to tell you, nope, this is the only way to do it, or this is the only way that I do it. I myself like to take different approaches, even in my drawing. If I really want to break down the drawing on something, this was I like a loose style of drawing. I like a loose style of painting. It's more comfortable. It's more fun. There's some randomness that happens in there when we're painting, little, happy surprises that can happen when you have a little less control. But for those of you that are a little bit more, you want to have this pattern every time, you can do that, right? But you'll develop that as you go. But let's see. So Kathleen, excellent question. So Kathleen, hi Chris. Everybody say happy birthday to Chris. It's her birthday today, and she's spending it hanging out with us for a little while. Awesome, Chris. Happy birthday. Happy birthday to you. Thank you for stopping by on your birthday. Hope your birthday is amazing. Okay, whatever it is that you're doing besides hanging out with us, I hope it's an amazing day. But listen, Kathleen. Actually, great question. So Kathleen said, "What if you do the background first? You do the light blue, and then let's say." Now I'm adding a little bit to what she said, but from my understanding, what if you do the background first, then you draw your petals, and then you paint your flowers white first? That could work. That's going to make it a little bit easier. But if you've still got a two-tone background that you're painting over, even when you paint your white over that, you're going to have this. You're going to be able to see it, because the lighter the color, the more transparent it usually is. And it also depends on the types of paints that you're using. Acrylic paint in general has a transparent nature. The more you water it down, the more it looks like watercolor. If you use it straight out of the bottle, there's really flowy paint. There's heavy bodied paint that's thicker. The pigments in there all vary a little bit from brand to brand. But generally speaking, let's say that you have that scenario, and you've got the green and then the light blue, and you've got your flower drawn over that, or stenciled, because some people like to stencil. When you come in, let's say you paint white over the flower petals, so you can you're trying to get it back to its original white, right? White background color, like what the canvas has, and then you paint over that. That will work better, and that's an excellent question and point, because yes, that will work better, but you might still have to layer that a few times, 2, 3, 4 layers sometimes, to eliminate that really dark green in the background. Especially the dark green is going to be harder to eliminate, so that you don't see it bleeding through. It's hard to see. When you see the yellow, your eyes only pick up the yellow, but in reality, this color has a transparent nature, and you're actually picking up some of the color that's in the background. In this case, it's white because the canvas was white, but if I had painted it over a blue background, there'd be some of that coming through a little tiny bit, so that the color would be a little different. The saturation might be the same, but the color would be a little different. Be more of a greenish, a slight green tint to it. So your background always plays a role in what it is that you're painting. I'm sure some of you have seen those black canvases. There's black canvases instead of white, and those make for some really cool paintings. But when you're painting yellow, for example, over the black, it's going to give you a different look than what yellow over white gives you, right? So the background is always going to give you, it's going to play a part in what your painting turns out looking like. And if you're dealing with two different sets of colors in your background and you're trying to paint something over that, like a flower, you're going to have two different colors to play with. But yes, that would be another approach. You could paint white over that. Some people like to do it that way. And absolutely, you could do that. Paint it white till you can barely see any of that green or any of that blue, or maybe none at all. You'll paint enough layers. It's more work, okay? Or it can be more work. And then you would paint your yellow over that. The trick, though, especially if you're newer to painting, when you start to do that, you want to make sure that your layers, first, layer 1 dries completely, then layer 2 dries completely, layer 3 dries completely. Otherwise, if you're painting wet over wet over wet, you're just going to get a really thick mush that you're spreading around your petals before you even start painting over your actual yellow. Okay, hopefully that makes sense. But anyhow, great question. Absolutely. Again, there are just so many different approaches. And as you go through, you will develop your own style, your own brush strokes, so to speak, your own techniques, you'll pick up on what you like. Experiment, though. What I want to make sure everybody understands is you want to experiment. Don't be afraid to take little chances. I would say don't experiment so much on the ones that you really want to turn out a particular way. Do your experimentation. Do take some time to experiment. Sometimes what I would do in many cases, let's say I have an idea that I want to paint, and I don't know what I want. I have 2 visions or 3 visions, and I'm going, I could make it more impressionistic, and it's going to do this, and my brush strokes are going to do that, and then, but maybe if I do it more of a realist approach, it's going to look like this, or maybe it's somewhere in between. I will take 3 canvases at the same time and start painting all of them at the same time in the different styles. It gives me an opportunity to experiment. And then sometimes what I find is I'll start to mix elements. As I'm going and developing this painting, I start to mix elements to create the final piece. But experimentation is going to be an extremely fun and sometimes frustrating, but an extremely effective way to develop your style and to get better at painting. Stretch yourself. You're not always going to be happy with the results. That's not what this is about. There's been so many times, especially when I first started to paint, where I'd start to paint and I'm like, oh no, this is a little frustrating. It's not what I want. But you don't quit. You keep going, and your brain will expand to figure it out as you go. But anyhow, that's pretty much the end of our session for today. The little bees, I mean, we could go into a drawing session on that, but I'll do those during the live. Okay, I'll teach you how to draw the bees during the live session. What do you guys think? Should we do the bees now, or do we do the bees during the live session? Give me your responses in the comments, and I'll wait about 30 seconds to see what the responses are. Sue Kripe says, happy bee day. Well, good, Kathleen. Fantastic. Glad to hear it. I'm glad that you've learned a lot. Very, very awesome. That's what I like to hear. Sometimes I feel like I take too long when we're doing paintings, but I know I want my audience to learn, right? I want you guys to have fun too, of course. I want everyone that's on here to enjoy it. So I have to find a balance where I'm teaching and also making it fun. I don't want you guys stressing about this. There's no benefit to stressing. So enjoy the process. That's the biggest out of all the advice I can give everyone is enjoy the process. Enjoy the process. I mean, if you're passionate about learning to draw and to paint, just do it. You're not gonna hurt yourself in the process. You might get a little bit frustrated and stressed and annoyed, but it's all part of the learning curve. Stick with it. Okay, fantastic. Oh, so great question. Yes, let's do the stems now. Might as well. And we'll do the bees. What the heck? Those are relatively easy to do with paint. So let's say that I don't have the stems on there and I'm going to paint. I would actually come in and do them with the actual paint, with a light green paint, and then I'd paint the green around them. But let's do them. Let's put them in. So right in here. So here's the way you want to look at your stem. Let's talk about the stem. If you take your finger, find the very center of your flower, generally speaking, with a straight flower, that stem is going to come down. You could practically draw a line straight down, and that's where you'd find your stem. But this is nature. Your stem could be your flower could be, your stem could be bent even if you wanted, right? It could be doing that, or maybe it's like this. But I'm going to do mine right below. I just kind of find my point. I visualize it. I can even kind of draw a little imaginary line. I'll draw my center line first, the very center of my stem. Okay, so that's, I know it's really light, so let me bring this up really quickly. Hold on one second. So what I did is I just drew a little, really light line, and this is, and I'll make it a little bit darker so it's easier for everyone to see. That's where the center of my stem will be, about the center, right? I'm not looking for perfect. I'm just looking for about. So if I was to draw a line from the center of my sunflower, I'd come down to about there, and then I just give it a little bit of, I go to the right and I go to the left. This is a big sunflower, and if you've ever seen those sunflower stems are pretty wide, pretty big. Now I'm not going for realism in this case, or it's an exact, but that's about here and here is how thick the stem for that sunflower is going to be. And then the same thing on the other side, really easy. I find the center, I just draw an imaginary line down across the petals right here below. I just come down like this. This one, depending on how big you made your petals, you may or may not see a lot of your stem. But again, find your center and then just do the right and the left edges for your stem. No big deal. Again, it could be a thin stem or a thick stem, all up to you. When we do the bees here in just a little bit, I'm going to zoom in on the painting so that it's easier for everyone to see. Otherwise, you're just going to be seeing a little tiny, little tiny thing up there. So, okay. Donna, thank you so much. I really appreciate that. I really, really do appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you. Stephanie says, I like the explanations. Learning will occur. Exactly. Awesome. Okay. So let me go ahead and zoom in. First, we'll do this. And now I'm going to do a close-up. I'm going to get a close-up of the area where my bees are going to be. Okay, making it a little easier for everyone to see. Let me see if I can raise my camera up a touch. Okay, bring my camera back over. All right, so let me keep the original bees in the shot for reference, and then I'm going to draw them right here. As I go, I'll grab the canvas and bring it close to the camera. So let's assess. Let's take a look at our bees. Okay. We've got anything that you're ever going to draw, especially now, as you do this more and more, your brain's going to adapt, and more quickly you're going to do without really thinking about it. But let's make a conscious effort to look at what it is that we're drawing. So these are, just a couple of little bees floating around. There's not a lot of detail to them, even though they look a little bit tricky. You break them down into little steps. So if I was to look at this bee, has a nice little curve, the general kind of a curve to the body. It's got three little segments you could look at it as. You've got the little yellow and black part for the head, and kind of it's not quite a neck, but you could look at it like that. You got this little section here. Here, let me use a brush here, a little brush handle to kind of indicate. So in here we have one little shape. We have the middle part, okay, and then we got the bottom part, where it's at its widest part, okay. And then the other observation is that it's wider at the base or at the bottom, and it slowly gets a little narrower as it goes up. Again, just little observations. They don't all necessarily have to mean a whole lot to you, but little observations to kind of get your brain ready to start the actual drawing part of it. And then the wings, we don't really worry about the wings too much. Those are easy to add later. Don't worry about the feet just yet. People start getting caught up in all the little tiny details, and your brain starts going, oh, that's a lot. There's a lot going on here. I can't do it. Break it up into little small parts. We're going to look at the body first, and that's what we're going to start with. We're not worried about the little antennae at the top. There's a couple little antennae that might be hard to see in the video, but the little tiny ones at the top. We got the little feet at the bottom. Don't worry about that. Eliminate eliminate some of the details. Now I'm going to make these bees a little bit larger so they're easier for you to see. Okay, I'm going to start with the head, and I'm going to do this general shape of just the black part of the head for now, which is almost like a little rectangle. Again, I'm going to make this larger later for the actual paint night on Wednesday, or the painting event on Wednesday. I'm going to, before then, I'll erase them and make them smaller so they're not quite as prominent on my painting. But for now, I'm going to make them nice and large, starting with that head. So this is the general shape of the head. This is the back part. Again, this is the black part. Starts with a little almost triangle shape. Comes forward, down and forward a little bit. Comes forward. Okay. From there, I'm going to go back and up like that. Okay. Let me give you a close-up. So this is the back or the top part of the head, the black area on the little bee over there. It's a geometric shape, basically. We're kind of doing a square. This is like a square edge. And if you look at that part up there, it's a triangle. Little shapes. Okay. Now, next part. We're going to go ahead and add the little yellow part, the little yellow segment, which is basically almost like looks like a teardrop or a water droplet going in that direction. I'm not sure if you guys can tell. A little point down here. So that little point is right here. We're going to go back. Practice, everyone. Don't get frustrated or anything like that. Make it fun. Just practice. Okay. Something like that. Again, that's the little, so this part is the black part of the head. The little yellow band behind it, behind that. Okay. Then the little black part, the next little black segment in front of it. Okay, starts right here, comes down again like we're making a triangle. That's one line. There's the other line. That triangle comes down. Remember, every line that you put down doesn't mean that that's your last line that you're going to be adding to the drawing. You're going to be able to make adjustments. Okay. Once we're done with the drawing part, we take a little step back, or with the first few steps, you take a step back, look at it, assess, make adjustments. Okay, now forward, a little forward here, and then back up. It's almost like we made, actually almost looks like a little diamond. Okay, head, first little yellow segment right in there, here. Then the next little black segment below that. Okay. Actually, I'm going to try and do this holding it to the screen like this. Okay. So the next segment is a yellow one. Goes over. Okay, something like this. Comes down. Back forward. This will all make sense in a little bit. I know it's not looking like much right now. You're going, what the heck are we drawing? Let your brain relax a little bit. Simply draw the little shapes. You get it. There are different approaches to drawing these bees. I'll use a different approach on the other one. Okay, we'll take more of a, I'll call it a macro. This is micro. We're going to use a macro on that one. You'll eventually adapt to whatever it is that your brain likes best. Okay, so black, yellow, back over here. All you really got to worry about right now with these shapes is that they're proportional, but trust the process. Just go with it. Okay, come down, come over, and then back up. We're making a jigsaw puzzle, and I can just imagine what some of you are thinking. What the heck? My brain doesn't understand this. This is a little, what is this? What kind of puzzle are we making? Once you've got that underneath, got the little butt part, well, very back part of our little bee comes around, comes up, comes up. Oh, you know what my bees are missing? A little stinger. Little stinger that might, who knows, maybe we'll add one. All right. That's funny, Kathleen. That's hilarious. So again, I don't want you guys stressing. I know there's a lot, you're like looking at this like, what? It'll make sense when we paint it. We're not painting it today, but we're going to add the little feet and the wings and everything. Now, I wouldn't be, to be fair, to be honest, I wouldn't be adding the wings or the feet or the antennae until after I painted the background. Okay, I would draw this and then paint around it. And then I would add the wings, the feet later. Because I don't want to, when I draw the wings and everything else, I wouldn't want to be contending with having to paint around all that. It just makes it a little bit easier. Okay, so, but let's go ahead and, so your brain can kind of understand it. Right here on this little point right here, got little feet coming out. Then over here between this little segment and that one, got a couple little feet coming down. Now, just for the fun of it, I'm going to go ahead and shade in the areas that are supposed to be black. There's one, there's two, and then of course the head. Okay. I'll give it the little antennae at the top. And then it's the wings that actually make our little bee look like a bee. Okay, there's that long little, and then there's two of them, right? They kind of overlap. Kind of doing that. Now some of your brains might be going, okay. So those are the two wings in the front, closest to us in the foreground. And then the little ones on the back, right over that little area. That one kind of larger one. Okay. And then a little one. Something like that. Okay. Let me okay. Now if you want, right, give your little bee an eye. It'll also help your eye kind of go, oh yeah, it's a bee. Okay. Hi, Jill. Okay, so that's one approach to drawing something that looks a little bit complex by breaking it down into the little tiny steps. And again, same thing. You draw it, you look at it, take a little step back, make little adjustments. Where do I need to make adjustments? Well, maybe this black part for the head isn't quite as large as I made it. I can erase a little bit of it and then just clean it up. Okay. Maybe the torso is too large. Maybe the center part is a little too wide. Then I would go through there and make the adjustment on it. Well, let me pull back a touch. Okay. In a moment, we're going to do this one. And again, I just want to make sure everybody understands. I'm making my bees larger on this step so that it's easier to see what it is that I'm doing. Before Wednesday, I'm going to erase these and make them smaller. Okay. I may actually, I'll just make them smaller. But let's look at this other bee. Okay, here we go with the other bee. Remember, you can go back and replay this as many times as you want. That's that in case you got kind of lost in this and you're going, wow, what the heck was all that about? You can go back and replay it, watch it again, practice some more. And then, but we're going to do this one next. What's happening, Ruplika? How are you? Thank you for stopping by and saying hello. But here we go. Next one. This one right there. Let me zoom in a bit. Am I zooming? Nope, I'm pulling away. Zoom in. Oh, don't want to lose the other bee. I want to keep the bee in sight. Okay. So we're drawing this one. Now I'm going to take a little bit more of a macro approach. What I mean by that is I take the larger shape instead of breaking it down that much as I did into the little segments for the first bee. I'm going to make it so that we do the large shape, which is the body first, and then we come in and add the little segments to that. How's it going, Adriana? How are you? Thank you for saying hello. And guys, if you're hanging out, say hi. Don't be shy. Please say hello. Okay, drop a little line. Just say hello to all of us that are kind of sitting here having a good time. If not, maybe a little frustrating for some of you with this little drawing section. Again, this is the pre-prep for our Wednesday sunflower and bees painting. Okay? But all right, let's get on with it. Other bee. It's a little bit smaller. The overall shape kind of similar. It's narrower at the head, larger as it, as it gets down towards the body. Also, it's a perspective thing with this one. The little bee's flying in that direction. Like, let's say if you were the bee, let's say it's going like this, flying away from us. So its little head is on the far side. Okay. But let's look at the overall body. That's what we're going to start with. So don't worry about the wings. Don't worry about the antenna. Don't worry about any of that. I'm going to make it larger. Start with a rounded top to the head. This time I'm not doing the little segments. I'm just going to, okay, a little bit of a rounded top to that head. I'll come in with a close-up in just a moment. A little segment for the torso, for the middle part of the torso. Okay, almost like we're drawing a snowman. It's got the head part, the middle part, and then the torso part. For those of you that have ever drawn a snowman. And then this is the bottom part for the little butt part. Okay, so, okay, kind of like that. Take a little step back, look at your handiwork. I probably either need to make my butt a little bit larger or make the waist part, the center part, a little bit narrower. Okay, but that's okay. Now I can go in there and start adding the little segments, right? So the head, again, because of perspective, we only see a little part of the head in the beast flying away from us. Its little head is on the far side of that body. So the prominent edge there would be the little yellow part, the yellow segment. Okay, and then we come across, kind of like that. Center segment. And we got a little stripe right here. Okay, now this approach might be a little bit easier for you than the first one. I get it. Okay. And just like what we did on the first one, I'm just going to color in the stripe here and the little head just to kind of make it look more like a bee. These aren't meant to be real bumblebees or real honeybees. They're not supposed to look exactly like bees. They're just kind of a little, when you add paint over that, it's really fun. It makes them look, they're just cool little bees. But the wings, these wings are longer. Here's my top wing. Okay, the one in the back's a little smaller. Okay, same thing on the other side, long. And then like that. What's up, Lisa? What's going on, Lisa Guarino? And then there's C. Lynn Reed. How's it going? Looks like Nijuana just jumped on. What's happening, Nijuana? Okay, my two little bees. Again, I'll be making these smaller. I just want to emphasize that. When we do the actual painting on Wednesday, those are going to be smaller. I'm going to make those a lot smaller. I don't want them quite as large. Okay? So there's the little bees. Let me go ahead and back up the camera here. I'm going to give you guys a minute. I know those of you that are joining on the live part that are drawing with me, maybe you need to see that a little bit longer. But again, this is all being recorded, so you can go back and do it again. Practice. If you struggled at all with this, go back and practice. Okay, practice, practice, practice. Let me go and back it up now. Back. There you go, Nijuana. Good. Glad you like it. But there's our, let's see here. Yeah. That far back far enough? Do we have everything? Yes. So there's the drawing piece of all this pre-prep. Okay. But yeah, my recommendation is practice. Get your practice in. It just makes it so much easier when you by let's say, just as an example, by the second, third, fourth time that you draw something like this, your brain's already wrapped itself around the process, and each time should get easier. But you want to practice with something like the chalk. Okay, you want to make sure you practice with something like the chalk or pencil that's really easy to erase. And then I would highly recommend that you practice on a scratch surface, meaning not the paint, not the surface that you're actually going to make this painting on. Oh yes, antenna, B. Yes, little antenna on the second little B. Little tiny antenna you can barely see popping up over the top. Now you can make little cute antenna, you can make them curled, and you can do all kinds of stuff. But yes, thank you for that. Little antenna popping up over the top of the bees. Okay, something like that. Right? So but yeah, you know, have fun with it. I know I repeat that a million times, and some of you might be going, okay, we get it, Jesse, we're supposed to be having fun. Yeah, it just makes everything a lot more fun in general, but it makes the process more enjoyable. But practice, definitely practice. Okay? But all right, everyone. That is it for the pre-prep today. Does anybody have any questions? If you do, please put them down below. Don't forget, you know, Wednesday, we're actually doing this on Wednesday, and I believe our start time is 3 o'clock Pacific time. So I'm on the West Coast in the United States. You might be in Central. You might be East Coast time. Maybe you're in Canada. I know people join us from all over the place. England, Australia, sometimes the Philippines. And so everybody's start time is a little different. But it is 3 p.m. West Coast time this coming Wednesday. It's usually when I start. That's when I start all of my lives. It's 3 o'clock, although sometimes I do 2 and 1. It just depends. But if you have any questions about the process or questions about the event on Wednesday, you know, send me a message. Go look at the details on the event page. I'm assuming that most of you that are on here probably already have an idea that it's coming this Wednesday. Also, I want to just remind everyone I'm starting a newsletter. For those of you that want to keep up with the calendar mainly, I'm starting a newsletter. I'll probably have the first newsletter calendar mainly out next week sometime. I'm adding a couple of events to the calendar. I'm hoping to add them today. That is the plan. But once I've got the updates out there, anybody that's on the newsletter, I'll be sending you that update as well. Of course, I post everything to Facebook, but I know sometimes you don't see, lots of you don't see the notification pop up, or Facebook doesn't send it to you. So oftentimes you miss the event, and I know because I get so many messages. Oh my gosh, Jesse, how come I don't know? How did I not know you were going live? Facebook didn't alert me, blah, 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 that kind of stuff. So for those of you that are interested, make sure you send me an email to paintingwithjesse@gmail.com. Painting with Jesse, that's JESSE @gmail.com. I'll add you to the email list for that newsletter. Promise I'm not going to be sitting there spamming you or anything like that. This is basically for the newsletter, and then events and things like that that you might be interested. We can always talk about that later, but primarily this is for the newsletter and to keep you guys updated as to what's coming up on the page. Okay, but all right, everyone, thank you so much for hanging out with me today. Hope you guys all have an amazing and fantastic day. Elizabeth, absolutely make sure you come on back so you can finish it. Again, the session will also be recorded. The live session on Wednesday will also be recorded. So if you miss it, doesn't mean you can't come back and paint with the recorded session. As I like to say, the live sessions are more fun because there's interaction, right? You can ask questions, but there's nothing wrong with coming back and painting with the recorded session, okay? But all right, Dawn, you absolutely loved having you on today. Thank you. Of course, Sue, as always. Thank you, Najwana. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. So are you. Thank you. Thank you. But all right, everyone. Thanks so much. I'll see you guys on Wednesday if I don't see you before then. Okay? Everyone have an amazing rest of your day, and I will see you guys very soon. Bye-bye. Keep an eye out for the updates that I'll be adding hopefully today to the calendar, if not at the latest tomorrow. But I really hope to do it today.